You're listening to the StoryShout podcast, hosted by Kelsey Jones. We're a weekly podcast dedicated to destigmatizing failure and laughing at our normalcy. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to StoryShout. My name is Kelsey Jones, and I'm joined here today with Amalia Fowler. She is someone that I knew on Twitter, and then a mutual friend of ours, Pam Lunn, told us that we should record together. So here we are. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Amalia, what do you suck at that we're going to talk about?
I suck at doing things on time. I am a procrastinator, and I have always been a procrastinator. And so far, I have no reason to stop procrastinating.
That's what we kind of talked about before recording, is like, it's always worked out for us to procrastinate. So why would you change what's so successful?
I think it's successful in the sense that I said I suck at not doing things on time, but I suck on like the planning out before. They always get in on time. Like, I'm not known as somebody who misses deadlines or is scatterbrained, but the process for me, I would say, is not successful, just judging by the amount of nights or free time I spend doing things that, had I planned a little more carefully, I would not be sacrificing, other time to get it done.
Right. Well, and that's what I do. I mean, I'll get handed a big project, and this was especially the case when I was freelancing. And I would plan it out week by week so it was more digestible to do, but I would always end up doing it the last week or a few days before. So, after a few years, I just started scheduling the whole thing like right before it was due, because I knew that I wouldn't do it. So why am I wasting my time trying to cut it into chunks? I just need to accept I don't know. It's not a failure, but accept.
Just embrace who you are. Nobody can see me nodding at everything you're saying, but I'm nodding at everything you're saying. I first realized it, I think, when I was in university, and I would have all these exam papers due, and I would stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. writing these papers. And then literally the bleary-eyed, looked like I just came from the bar hungover look, trudging across campus like a zombie to hand in this paper. And I'd be like, I'm never doing this to myself again. And then it would be like, you got 95%. And it's like, well, maybe this is the best way to do it then, because I had all this free time before, and then just sacrifice one night and still get the grade and everything else.
Right. I know. Did you ever do any library naps at the middle of the night? Because I would do that. I knew exactly where the comfy chairs were in the library on campus, and I'd set an alarm on my phone and do maybe a 20-minute nap, and then I'd get going again.
I did naps in the various 24-hour lounges that my schools had. I forget what they're named, but they had funny names, and I would just you could find me there the night before a paper. Also exams, studying right before the exam. And it's a really privileged spot to be, because I think my brain just works for me in that way. I remember meeting my husband, and we met when I was 19. So very, very early in my educational, post-secondary career. And he watched me do this for 2 degrees across 2 different institutions. And he's just it's not fair. I don't understand. And so I recognize it's not possible for everyone, but I do think that there has been costs on the flip side, just from a personal well-being standpoint. But I like your suggestion of just schedule it that way. If that's the way it's going to happen, just schedule it that way, if that's the way you operate best.
Right. Because I think about all the brain power I spent psyching myself up and going to my little task manager and parsing it out and looking at the calendar and saying, okay, I'll do 30% by this Friday, 60 by the next or whatever, and then till it's due. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. So So I'm all about like just embracing. And that's kind of what this podcast is about too. Like not trying to fix it, but just being like, yeah, I'm not the best at this, but I'm so good at so many other things. And like you said, your work always gets done on time.
Especially when there's someone else relying on me. And I think I'm lucky in that I'm a procrastinator who is highly empathetic. So I never procrastinate to the point of someone else's detriment. It's always procrastinating to my own detriment or my husband's, honestly. He'd probably tell you that. But at work, it does not spill to my team. But then I look at that and I clearly have the skills to get things done in a way that, is more equally managed across the board. And so I can't translate that to my home life. Alternatively, my jobs could just be crazy busy, and we'll find out which it is when I transition in the fall. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like I try not to let my poor planning affect my team, but there are some times when I have to have people help me, and I really struggle with that because I think when I was a freelancer and I didn't have a team, you're right, it was like always to my own detriment. But now that you're saying that, it's making me think like, are some stuff that I'm behind on that does affect like other people? And nobody's like told me it's a problem, but also like, I feel like when do you usually tell your boss that something they're doing is a problem? So you're really making me do some self-reflecting on what I need to be better at, like just to make sure it doesn't affect my team.
With a team, I'm big on messaging around areas of opportunity and the fact that nobody is perfect. And so with my team, from day one, when someone starts, and you can have this conversation anytime, I was just like, I know that I can be a bottleneck for people. And so I just own it straight up. I'm like, I know I can be this person. Always tell me when I am being that person if it involves you and affects you. And I try to model owning I don't call them weaknesses. They're areas of opportunity.
Okay, I like that.
I own my areas of opportunity, and nobody's perfect, and my team owns their areas of opportunity, and we just try and fill in the gaps where we can. So I actually built this team. My right-hand person was super organized and very project management oriented and just like filled those areas of opportunity for me. And then his right-hand person is more like me, where it's more creative and like bigger picture. And so I kind of like stack my team based on their gaps. And it's not even like a skill gap that you can teach, because no one is ever going to teach me to not leave packing until like 5 hours before I have to get on a plane. Like that's just never going to be. I have a half-packed suitcase. Like this is the perfect time for this conversation. I'm leaving my job today and I have like 12 tasks with a hard deadline of like 4 p.m. because I'm turning in my keys. I have a half-packed suitcase in the other room because I'm flying home to surprise my mom for the first time since the pandemic started at 9 a.m. I have to leave here at 6 a.m. No bag packed. And then downstairs is a mess. And my husband comes back from Ontario before I do. And so I need to leave the house in a state that, someone would want to come home to. And that'll all get done tonight. And you look at the number of hours between now and me boarding that plane, and it doesn't seem like it will all get done. And then it just always gets done.
Right.
But it does cause me a lot of stress trying to get from A to B. So I think I also married someone, actually, ironically, who fills in those area of opportunity gaps for me. So really just build your team with that honest, open, this is what I'm not great at. And if you are great at it, then let's talk about it, because communication solves all procrastination problems.
I love that. Well, and I don't know about you, but I procrastinate with some stuff, and then I'm like the complete opposite on the other. So for me, packing, like you said, I get a lot of anxiety that I'll forget something, and I'm very irrational about it because like usually the places I travel to have like they're civilizations. They have a Target or like a CVS. Like I'm going to be okay. Like they probably even have like a Dollar General worst case scenario where I could buy like underwear. I'm going to be okay.
I'm
But I've
laughing because Canada has none of those things. And therefore, by your definition, we are not a civilization.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I love Canada.
I know what you mean. It was just really funny. But
I just mean like I get the anxiety that I'm going to forget something. So I pre-pack like days before, not days before, but like 1 or 2 days. And then my husband is like you. Like I'm in the car. I have me and our son. We have a toddler son. All our stuff's packed. We're ready. My husband's like doing laundry or something upstairs, or he's like packing his suitcase and we have to go right now. And every time he does that, and we have been together, we got together in college too. I think we were 21. So I've known him for 14 years. And so he's always like that. And it's like you said, like what we're talking about, he'll never change, but it's still such a stressful situation for me because I already have this anxiety that I like invent nightmares that I won't have underwear. So I overpack and I have like 10 pairs of underwear. And then he's still upstairs and it just like drives me crazy. So anyway, all that to say, like, I think I procrastinate with work stuff a lot, but not so much like packing or like home stuff.
I think that's really interesting to unpack. Pun. Because for me, as we were talking, I realized like when it comes to driving somewhere and meeting people, I'm always early. I have so much anxiety about being the person that is late. And I'm always planning in advance where I'm going to park. For some reason, parking brings me a lot of anxiety. And maybe that's what procrastination is. It's like when you feel comfortable in the situation, you feel comfortable enough to then leave things because the consequences don't feel as dire to you. So the consequences, for example, of me not packing, to me, I'm going to my parents' house. I can buy anything I need. Like, again, a place of privilege. I don't need my suitcase. I put everything, but I pre-pack my carry-on. So I have medication. I have my headphones. I have entertainment. I have, what I would desperately need. And then the rest is kind of like, we'll see what ends up in the bag. But for me, the cost of not being able to park equals being late. And for some reason, I hate being late, which is the opposite of me as a kid. But like, I hate not being on time. For my new job where I'm teaching, I've already like pre-planned when I need to leave the house to be early enough in case there's traffic for the like 10-mile drive. And it's August 6th. I don't need to be there with students for a month. And I've planned how to get there. And so that's just really interesting that you brought that up. It's like, I feel like when the consequences are so much higher or feel so much bigger, or maybe conflict with the value that we have, that the procrastination goes away.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because as you're talking, I was thinking about, being late. And when I am late, it makes me feel like it's a reflection on my character. And that's just how I feel. I'm not saying like that about you, but I feel like, oh, this person, who I'm meeting, if I'm late, they're going to think I'm a mess. They're going to think I don't care. I don't value their time. I can't get it together. If it's like a business meeting, I'm like, oh, they think I'm not professional. And so that was going through my mind as you were talking. And so I was thinking, well, with that train of thought, how does that relate to things that I do procrastinate? And so I think with work, it's almost like the opposite, because I think since we're in such creative fields and a lot of the freelance work that I have procrastinated on in the past is so creative, it's like when I finally turn it in, it's like they're going to be judging me. And so it's like I almost rebel. It's almost the opposite. And I don't know why those two things aren't the same. I don't know why like I get anxious about being late like you, because it reflects on my character. But then with work, because I feel so vulnerable because it's like part of my creativity, it's like showing like they're going to be judging something I created. I don't know. This might be too deep for this type of podcast.
No, I
these
love
are like going
it.
through my brain as you're talking.
I feel like for me, there's probably 3 maybe 4. I don't know yet. Reasons why I procrastinate.
Okay.
The first is, like you said, that vulnerability piece is huge. When I feel like I'm going to be judged, I try so hard to not care about what people think about me or my work, and to remain, objective or neutral in life. I'm terrible at it. I care deeply about everything, and I'm just trying to embrace that as a person. The second reason would be not caring at all. Like, there's some things that I procrastinate on because I just don't care. So it's like, doing the dishes is a fantastic example. Like, my husband and I have a pretty equal split of what goes on in this house, and dishes is my purview. I like dishes. I don't mind once I've started, but I never start the dishes because I just don't care about the dishes until it's too much, and then I do care. So, like, that's the second reason. And then the third reason, I think, is caring too much. So there's definitely times where I've procrastinated just because the overwhelming impact of, like, what is in front of me and the changes that's going to cause in my life. So I'm incorporating a business right now because I will be I'll be teaching in the fall, but I'll be working on a project as well. And I need to incorporate to make that work. And I put that off for weeks. Like, everything else was in line. Like, every single thing was in line. And I didn't press that. I talked to the lawyers, talked to the accountants, had a contract, like everything. And didn't press that button because I think it felt too big. Like, it was just like, this is a life-changing moment, so therefore we're going to not do it. The consequences of it going poorly just feel so big. So we're not. So I think those are the 3 kind of main reasons. And it's so funny because or not funny, but it's odd funny because they're in direct conflict with each other. It's like, I care too much. I don't care at all. I feel like I'm exposed. Like, those are kind of the reasons why things don't happen.
I think what I've learned, there's a really good book. It's called Drop the Ball, and it's by Tiffany Dufu. And it talks about, the main focus is about, like, equal housework, like, between partners. But as you're saying that, one thing that really struck me from the book that she talks about is, like, things that you don't care about. What if you just didn't do them? Now, the dishes, like, obviously you have to do the dishes, but her saying that, like, made me think about, like, what meetings are we having every week that, like, literally nobody cares? Or, like, what reports am I sending that literally nobody looks at that I spend hours doing? Or maybe they even give me anxiety to do that literally no one reads them. So it made me, like, reevaluate things that I put off because I don't care. And I think, well, what would happen if I just didn't do it? And so one thing with that is, like, email. Email feels very overwhelming to me, especially because I get pitches all the time, like, for people that want to sell something to me or want me to do guest posts, or, like, they want to put a guest post on, the blog or something like that. And so with emails, there was one summer, a couple summers back, where I just stopped responding fast, because before that, I always prided myself on like responding really fast. And that gave me a lot of anxiety of, like, I have to answer these every day. And I just stopped doing it. And no one, not a single person, not people I knew or people I didn't know, weren't like, hey, where are you? Like, why haven't you answered? Like, literally nobody cared. And that was something I was putting on myself, and I would procrastinate because it gave me anxiety and nobody cared. And then on the flip side, how you're talking about caring too much, I think being able to drop things that didn't matter, it let me focus more on things I really did care about. And so I think I have a little more mental energy for things that are scary, like what you're talking about. Like, I still put them off, but I think because I don't have all this unnecessary fluff of, like, meetings or emails or whatever that don't matter, it's let me, like, hone in on things that really do matter and things that I need to get done.
I think that's a really great point. That's a process I've been trying to narrow down, is, like, what do I actually care about? Mm-hmm. And what am I doing because I feel like it's the right thing to do, like society's telling me I have to do or be this way, yep. Or, like, the systems that are in place that you walk into in a job or in a family or in, like, that they are set up that you have to do it that way. And one of the things I did, so I grew up and we don't have to get into like the details of it, but like I felt in my 20s that I like did not have a super strong sense of identity. And I think a lot of the time the decisions that I was making was based on this idea of just not wanting to disappoint whoever the authority figure was in those situations, or whoever I deemed the authority figure to be. In this case, like I am at work currently like the authority figure, and I'm still worried about disappointing someone else. And my therapist at the time was just like, I think it would be really good for you to just disappoint someone. She's like, every time you make a decision based on this idea that you are going to disappoint someone, you are actively not appointing yourself like the driver of your life. Like the opposite of disappoint is appoint. And you're abandoning yourself and your values and what you want to then do what these other people want you to do. And I think that kind of connects to that piece about, well, if I'm procrastinating because I don't care about the thing, how important is it that this thing actually exists in my life or as part of my responsibilities? And it comes down to, I think, also delegating. Like, I hope to one day afford somebody who can take care of my home, because I hate taking care. I hate cleaning. I just do. Same. I love my home, but I hate cleaning. And that's obviously like a very privileged stance for me to be able to say that maybe one day I can do that. And in the meantime, I will continue to begrudgingly clean for my partner's sake more than for mine. But one of the things that really helped me figure out, okay, like, well, what falls into this category of things that I do care about is just trying on values for size. So like, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you my values are like family and honesty and integrity and loyalty. And those things are all well and good. Like, I don't think they should not exist, but they end up not being the things that I want to drive my life. So I still strive for those things. I'm not saying like, go be a dishonest person. But it turns out that my values are actually more balance and fun and play and community and gratitude and thoughtfulness. Like, those things matter way more to me. And so now when faced with a decision or something that's going to load up my time, which makes me feel like I have to procrastinate more because of the overwhelm, I like run them through those values. And if they compromise too many of them, or if they compromise balance, which I've kind of designated like my pillar value, I just say no. I just say no.
Yeah. I love that. And you're so right. And I think like COVID has really made a lot of people do that, is like think about what their true priorities are. And I think there is a lot of power in just saying no. Like, I remember, when I was starting my career and I was like so broke and so desperate to like make money and get clients, I wouldn't say no to anything. And so I think it's taken me a long time and therapy to like, and I still get these feelings sometimes, but like that feeling of desperation never has really gone away. And so to turn down like freelance work, like how we were talking before we started recording, is really hard for me because I don't need it. But I always in the back of my mind am like, well, what if everything else falls apart and I've said no to this client? I'm not going to do work for them anymore. And that burns the bridge. And then I'll never get client freelance work again. I don't need it right now. I can't do it right now with everything going on. But it's like, I can't say no because I remember the feeling of being so desperate for clients. And so I think values, like you said, are something that do have to continuously change because your circumstances change. The relationships you have with friends and family and maybe a partner are going to grow or change or come and go. And so I think always reassessing your values is okay, number one. And number two, like, it's actually really useful for you to do that because my values before of like, I have to eat, I have to say yes to everything or else like I'm never going to get work. That's not the case anymore. And so things have to change as you grow in your career and your personal life in order for you to be able to do everything you want to.
Absolutely. And they should change. I am not the same person I was 5 years ago. I don't even think I'm the same person I was 18 months ago. I think I'm like drastically different, especially with the pandemic. And I don't know why the collective I'm sure it affects men too, but I know it definitely affects women. I don't know why we feel like we have to fit into these little boxes all the time of like, this is who you should be and what you should be, when we're all so different and we're all changing and learning at the same time. And I have two kind of favorite sentences. One is, every no is also a yes. It's a yes to something else. Every no to something that like doesn't light you up inside is also a yes to something potentially that does light you up inside. And then the second one is, your lack of planning is not my emergency. And
I get that. Yeah.
I don't say it directly to clients, but there are a lot of nice ways to say it to clients because, you know, at the end of the day, I really take it seriously when people say that they look back on their life and they only regret the things they didn't do versus the things that they did try or do. And we're continuously learning through our experiences about what works for us. And one of the things, like, I'm a big Glennon Doyle fan. And in her book Untamed, when she talks about, you know, she decided to never abandon herself ever again by making decisions that were not for her and were for other people. That's kind of what I've adopted. And it's like, I can say no to things. I can express myself in kind and thoughtful and respectful ways and still not do what you're asking me to do. Because I only have so much time, and I don't want to get to my deathbed and be like, I spent so much time running myself into the ground and did not do these other things or did not work towards these other things. But it's really hard. It's really hard if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you like, to figure out those things. And when I started to do it, I just, my friend who owns a studio here in Vancouver, a dance studio called Formation, she was just like, follow your sparkle. And I love that. I love it so much. So when I do something or take on something, at the end, or like far enough into it, if it's a job, I'm like, okay, does at least more than 50% of what I'm doing like light me up? Because no job is going to light you up 100% of the time. There's admin work, there's other things. And if the answer is no, it's like, okay, what parts do I like? What parts do I not like? And how can I do more of the first, like going into the future? And then just building on that. And you kind of slowly start to build this picture of like who you are and what you like. And I kind of love that this conversation about procrastination has just devolved into knowing yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe that's the root of it. Like, did we just solve procrastination? Because I think that's like the root of it is like, you're doing it for a reason. Like, you're procrastinating for a reason. So you need to figure out what that is. And I think it all comes down to like this fear of disappointing people. Like how I said, like for me, my work's going to be judged and I don't want people to think it's bad. Like, people don't really care. Like, things that are really important to us, they don't necessarily care about. So like for me, this ebook that I had written and I put off for months and then finally did, like, to the person I'm sending it to, I'm just another contractor that is turning in an assignment, and she's assigned out 10 ebooks and I'm one of 10 that she gets it back. Like, to me, it's been this like anxiety ridden thing that, I'm having someone else do, and I don't want to disappoint, this client that I have a good relationship with, but to them, I'm just repeating what I said, but like to them, it's not a big deal.
And she's sitting over there thinking about something else entirely.
Yep.
Like about disappointing her mother-in-law, or like she's not even, it's just, these things get so big in our own minds. And there is nothing wrong with that though. And I think the bottom line of like knowing who you are is I am a procrastinator. It is like a deeply ingrained part of me. I keep getting rewarded by life for being a procrastinator.
Yeah.
So why not structure, like I love what you said earlier on, is like, why not structure my life around my procrastination the same way I structure my life around the fact that I'm a Big Brother fan, and on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Sundays, I'm sitting in front of the television watching Big Brother. Like, I won't sacrifice that. So it's just like, I think the entire kind of like, yes, I fail at planning. It's a big area of opportunity for me. sometimes, which I think is really interesting, but knowing the reason why, like asking yourself if you can get rid of that thing. Like I love what you said about that too. And then just building your life around it. Like I'm teaching 4 courses in September for 12 weeks. And my goal by the time school starts is to have a month of work like planned, because I know that I'm not going to do all 12 weeks. I know that after each week, I'm going to care about what's going on with the students because I am a deeply empathetic person to my own detriment. I'm going to redo half the content as I go. So it's actually to plan in the beginning is actually to waste my own time later. And if I know that, why would I just plan because the world says that you have to be a project planner versus somebody who does things at last minute? Like, I think it really does come back to that idea of just not abandoning yourself and embracing who you are, and then figuring out who in your life can fill the gaps so that you're not actually being detrimental to other people while still staying true to yourself.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's like a good point, for us to wrap up today is like, what are some things that, like, how can you just own your failures and just like put that as part of your life? Like, I mean, all the topics that we've talked about and with other people that I've had in these episodes, it's like, one person, they're going to do laundry. Like they're really bad at laundry. And it's like, just admit you're bad at laundry like that. You're going to put it off. You're going to do 8 loads in one day and hate yourself that whole day because you're like folding for 4 hours, but then it's done and like, just move on. And so I think that's really good advice that you gave to like kind of wrap things up is like embrace what you're bad at and don't try to fix yourself, just accommodate it.
Yeah. And I would even reframe that we're not necessarily bad at things. We just have strengths in certain areas and weaknesses in others, or areas of opportunity in others. But you don't need to solve for all those areas of opportunity. You don't have to. You can't. And so what systems or people or hires can you put in place or make to, or ask for help from, to balance that out? And then what can you do more of to leverage your strengths in a relationship? So like, I think of like my personal partnership. My husband does most of the organizational stuff in this home because if it was left to me, it would not happen because there's no deadline for a home.
Yeah.
Whereas I take the mental load of other things, like things I don't mind doing. Like I do the dishes, I do the garbages. And for the person who doesn't love laundry, don't fold it. I know somebody who washes it, dries it, and tosses it in the drawer it goes. If you don't mind wearing wrinkly clothes, who says you have to fold everything that you put away, only to unfold it later to wear it?
Yep.
Nobody.
We do that with my kids' clothes. We don't fold or hang up any of his clothes.
Just sort them. And then they can grab a t-shirt and grab a short and like go on their merry way. But I think the bottom line is like embracing who you are, appointing yourself the manager of your own life, and understanding that yes, you have these areas of opportunity. You have things that you could do better. But just because society says that like that's a failure, that's something you're bad at, doesn't mean you actually have to fix anything, because somewhere else out there, there's somebody who has those as strengths and you can be a perfect complement to them. So like lean into what you're good at and put systems in place. You're not harming anyone with your areas of opportunity, but you don't have to fix it. There's nothing to fix here.
Yes, I love that. So where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
They can find me at Amalia E. Fowler on Twitter, Amalia, because people can never spell my name. And also at The Wholehearted Manager. So a lot of the stuff I was talking about today, I talk a lot about managing with empathy and managing from this viewpoint. And so The Wholehearted Manager is my newsletter about how to do that. And that is in my bio at the other Twitter handle, because I don't remember the Twitter handle for Wholehearted Manager right now. So if you find me, you will find that.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. Don't forget to share us with your friends and leave us a review. And we really appreciate it. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the StoryShout podcast. Don't forget to review us on iTunes and connect with us on social media at StoryShout or online at storyshout.co. Until next time, stay normal.